that your approach to this was to say, I'm going to forget that I believe in anything because I'm not sure that I do. And you took as a doctor, you took an extremely scientific approach to this. And what have been some of your conclusions to this point?
Well, I laid them out all as champions, and I would not controvert their claims. I just looked at what they were claiming to state, and just laid it side by side. And so far, we've looked at in this comparison at two features. One is what kind of literature is the writing, and in that we clearly saw that the New Testament is easily, by far, the most well-attested piece of ancient literature across the board, not just religious piece of literature. That's amazing.
It is amazing.
Number two, we saw was one of their top features, and I think at that point we said wow to all of them because they were really amazing, all of them. But when it came to the Judeo-Christian, not only was it amazing, but it was really, we had to say it's beyond human attainment. For a supervisor to live 1400 years, supervising the writing of one book in which there was one lead character that was described by all kinds of authors.
Yes, in 66 different books. Well, now, the question is, do these ancient writings, the five that you studied, these five religions, do they open themselves to a test for authenticity?
That is a very important part of any search. Because I cannot go into them to experience them. I must start standing outside before I get into any of these religions. And that was the position I was taking. Before I get in, why should I get in there? And so one of the questions was this, very valid. Does the writing itself open itself to be tested? When I looked at that, the Hindu literature really does not. The Hindu literature tells us to just accept the writings as they are and don't question it. Same with the Buddhist literature. You must not use your reasoning or logic because there are too many concepts there that are beyond logic and reason, so they say. So there's no way you can test these two religions or their writings. In other words, they do not allow it at all. When you come to the Islamic literature, there is an interesting test. In more than one of their verses, the Quran has stated out that it's throwing a challenge out. And here's the challenge. Write a book or a chapter or a verse like the Quran. If you can do it, then there's a question whether this is really supernatural. That was their test. So when I looked at that, I said, okay, let's try to see if this test can be met. Can we take up the challenge? But when I looked at it very carefully, I realized there was a big block. And I would like to put up on the screen the questions that I had regarding the blocks. Okay. And here they are. When there's a test, the question is, what aspect should it be equaled? Is it the question of diction, of philosophy, or truth, or just language? Number two, the method of comparison. How shall we do the comparison after I have brought a writing to challenge the Quranic writing? Number three, who will be judge? Will it be an individual? Will it be a committee? Will it be a neutral person? Will it be an Islamic nation? And the fourth one is what language? And here is where I ran into the most difficult part. The Muslims believe Arabic to be the divine language. So if I must take up this challenge, I must write a book or a chapter or a verse in Arabic. So when I looked at these four, I realized that this does not apply to me and it cannot be a universal challenge.
So it doesn't open itself.
It really does not.
Okay.
If it did, for instance, one of my questions was, who will be the judge?
Right.
They don't say who's going to be the judge. Then by default, I should then be the judge.
Okay.
And really, if I am the judge, I have to be very honest. I think I have read other writings that are also exquisitely beautiful. Omar Khayyam, Jalaluddin Rumi, Rabindranath Tagore, Shakespeare, And even some of the writings in the Bible, Isaiah, beautiful prose, I could not honestly say that the Quran is so far ahead that they beat all the others hands down. I really could not say that. So if I was the judge, the Quran would really not win hands down.
So then what about with the Bible?
So I came to the Bible, and here again, because of the feature, I had to put the Judeo-Christian literature together, the Old and the New Testament. And there is a challenge thrown out. One of them is in the book of Isaiah, 45th chapter and 46th chapter. It says, if any of you out there claims to be a God, let him take up this challenge. And this challenge is, make predictions that will come true. It's called predictive prophecy. That's the challenge. And when I looked at that, I realized it's an open challenge, because we can go back and see when a prediction was made. We can look at the fulfillment and make our own judgment. I'm going to give you an example of how diverse this prophecy and fulfillment was. For instance, there is this prophecy about a certain town and an event in that town. Now it is written more than 500 years earlier. The first question is, you don't even know whether the town will exist 500 years later. And then the event that would happen is that a person will be born in that town. And when you look at the fulfillment, the parents were not even from that town. They lived in another town. And they went there only specifically for a little period of time by order of the government of Rome. And all we know about the time they spent there was just that little bit. They never went back to the town again, and yet 500 years earlier, that town was mentioned and there would be a birth in that town. I'm amazed.
I know.
Because they didn't live there.
And then you consider like the prophecies of Daniel, where world history is just laid out. And it is so amazing to think that, the Bible proves itself to me because of these. The other is an opposite way. Here's a little town that may not even exist, but it does exist. There's another prophecy of a huge town, city, capital, which was at its zenith of power, and the prediction was that it would not exist anymore. There would be no more inhabitants. That was Jeremiah talking about Babylon. It was the greatest city of the then known world. But it would never be, it would not be inhabited again. I can quote you today from the Smithsonian, dated June 2003, where it talks about Babylon. They have identified the place, 50 miles south of Baghdad in Iraq today. And the words in the Smithsonian on that page is, it is today hot, deserted, and dusty. In other words, this prophecy was written about 595 BC. 2,500 years later, still uninhabited. That's amazing.
It's an amazing, and we look, and this is not just one or two, and I think if I were an honest inquirer, I would be amazed with 5 or 10. But scholars tell me, and I haven't counted, but they tell me, there are over 600 prediction fulfillments. 300 of them refer to one individual. Of them, 28 took place in one weekend. How can that be just chance?
Absolutely.
To me, this challenge that it has thrown out has been met by its own writings. Completely enough for me to have confidence in what it's saying.
Well, and when you look at these and you see here, as you're doing this side-by-side comparison, now you have eliminated 4 of the religions and saying that on this basis, that as far as being open to a test of authenticity, there is only one, and not only is it open, but it has proven itself over and over. What were, as you did the side-by-side claim or comparison, what were some of the highest claims that the founders made for themselves?
That was the next question. Now I turned from the writings to the founders themselves. and I addressed the flesh and blood founders with the next 7 questions. Like you mentioned, the first one was, what is the highest claim you make for yourself? Now, they didn't know I was going to ask this question. And I had promised myself that I would not controvert their claims. I would just accept their claims. And so, when I asked those questions, here's what I found, and I'd like to put it up on the screen now.
Yes.
Comparison of the highest claims, and here they are. In Hinduism, I've mentioned Visvamitra. He is one of the sages. There are many of them, and the highest claim they made for themselves is that of being a sage. In Buddhism, Gautama Buddha claimed to be the enlightened, or actually the super enlightened one. In the Islamic tradition, Muhammad was claimed to be the seal of the prophets. They have in their tradition 124,000 prophets, but Muhammad was the final, the seal. In Judaism, Moses was called the prophet and the lawgiver. Then when it came to Christianity, there's a different claim altogether. This man is not claiming to be a prophet or a lawgiver or an enlightened person. He's claiming to be the Son of God, meaning the same substance as God, meaning God. To an inquirer who is searching, this is a stunning claim. The first reaction I had was, Jesus, can you tone down your claim a little bit, because it's a little too much. Can you be just like the other person, because I know you wear the same clothes as me, you eat the same stuff as me, you go to the same little shop, working there, and how can you claim to be the Son of God? It was hard to just swallow it, because the rational mind can't accept this easily. But I had promised myself I would accept their claims, and here I was having a difficult time with this claim. All the others I could understand. This one, I had to scrutinize it, then I had to look at it once again. Although I had promised that I would just take it face value, I was having a hard time. So I had to use again my reasoning, common sense that I had. And I asked, what kind of people call themselves God? What kind of people?
And what was your answer?
Well, let me put it up on the screen. There are 4 types of people that I think might venture to call themselves God. Number 1, they may be mad or deluded. And number 2, they may be a liar and an impostor. Number 3, a megalomaniac. And number 4, well, God. These are the 4. I decided to look at the writing and see whether these statements might fit this man who is making such a claim. So the first thing was he mad or deluded? There is a diagnosis people make. It's called delusions of grandeur. You think you are, but you're not. A little girl thinking that she's the Queen of England. You know, that kind of picture. I have not found even one single scholar worth his name who would ever call Jesus mad. But I am going to quote somebody whom we very rarely look at to talk about the mind of Jesus or what he thought of Jesus. And this is a statement by Napoleon Bonaparte. I'd like to put it on the screen because people think of him only as a world emperor. He was a general of the French army, a world conqueror. Towards the end of his life, they asked him, what about Jesus? This is what he said when he thought about Jesus. Everything in Christ astonishes me. The nearer I approach, the more carefully I examine, everything is above me. Everything remains grand, of a grandeur which overpowers. Neither history, nor humanity, nor the ages, nor nature offer me anything with which I am able to compare it or explain it. Here, everything is extraordinary. A world emperor talking about a peasant from Palestine.
That's an amazing statement.
Amazing statement. There are many others. So I could not call him deluded or mad. Others didn't. So was he a liar or an impostor? And actually that is answered quite easily if you call him a person in his right mind because of one particular incident in his life, and that was his trial before the Sanhedrin. they asked the same question, are you the Son of God? That is the same question we are talking about right now. When they asked him, now we must understand Jesus was a thoroughbred Jew. He knew if he answered that he was, it would amount to blasphemy in the minds of his judges, and he was going straight to his condemnation. In an open trial, when you are bringing evidence, I look at people who have been there. A person will want to establish truth to escape the death sentence. There are others who will twist truth and in fact are willing to state outright falsehood just to establish their innocence so that they will not have the death sentence passed on them. Do we see this the world over?
Absolutely.
Nobody in his right mind will cling to a lie to bring the death sentence upon himself.
Exactly.
So just by sheer reasoning, looking at him, he was in his right mind. How come then was he telling a lie to bring the death sentence on himself? No. He had to be speaking at least what he fully believed was the truth, because he died for it. So because of that, I have to state that he was not telling a lie. Was he a megalomaniac like the Caesars of Rome or the pharaohs of Egypt who called themselves God? There's one incident where I think this also moves away. I come from the East India. We do wash the feet of visitors who come to our home. And if we have servants at home, then the servants do that. There was a time when they went to a room, to a person's house, there was no servant to wash. And he looked around, everybody else looked around. Who would do that menial task? He got up, took off his outer garment, wrapped a towel around his waist, and did the job of a common servant, washing his disciples' dirty feet. In the East, the relationship between a leader called the Guru and a follower who is called the Shishya, the Guru-Shishya relationship is one of reverence and awe. It's never the other way around, where a leader will do that. So I could not call him a megalomaniac. He will not do that at all. I have only one option left. Possibly God. Tough as it was for my rational, reasoning mind to accept, I had to keep in my mind, this man could possibly be the Son of God, like he claimed.
So, this is just so fascinating to me that you examine this, I mean, you turned it every which way but loose. You looked at it upside down and inside out. And did it help you that as you were coming down to this point, that first you had decided, yes, there has to be a God. All the evidence proves this. And now you are going through these 5 writings, and you're already seeing that 4 don't lend themselves to the test of authenticity. They're not as well documented. So when you get to this, when you had this idea that let's look at what they claim to be, it's okay to say, you know, our rational mind can say, all right, I can accept someone as a sage or a prophet or this or that. But for someone to claim they had to be the Son of God, now you're suddenly taking a stronger scrutiny even, and you came to the conclusion that this is one more thing that I'm not going to say now that I've decided to be a Christian because of this. You've got a lot more questions to go still.
Right.
But is it safe to say that everything else that had proved itself about the Bible being the truth, would that help you to accept this idea that he was the Son of God?
Well, actually, to be honest, I did not want to answer that right away. I left that for the end of the search. The reason was because I did not want any conclusion made to color the next questions that I had. But that was very heavy on my mind, the idea that I should make a decision. But I resisted that idea because when I look at medical journals, we are taught to critically examine a journal because you can skew numbers, you can skew ideas, and I could also skew what I was doing. I could choose topics in which only this person comes out on top. or only the Bible comes out on top. And so I did not want to color the next one. In fact, a very good question that you've asked. Later on, we will look at 1 or 2 or 3 in which he came out last. But that is the search that I came to. I'm not going to deny it. We will come to that. And so the question is really very valid, but I did not make a conclusion at that point. I didn't want to.
Well, it's just so fascinating to me how you have been led through this search. And we do know that the final decision was that Dr. Pundit has accepted Christ as his Savior and Lord of his life. And it means a whole lot to me, Dr. Pundit, that we went through such a thorough search and examining all this evidence, and it was proven to you beyond a doubt. Now, you have a ministry called
Search Seminars
International. And you go out and do seminars that come search with me, in which you go over this truth. How might someone, if they wanted you to come to their church or just to their town, to a neutral area even, to do these seminars, how would they contact you?
Well, for one, I have really presented this only once in a church. Every time it has been in a neutral venue where anybody can come. Yes, they can contact us at our website, and our website is www.searchseminarsinternational.org. You can get a telephone number out there, and you can contact us. We also have an address that's there. You can use that and contact us.
So Search Seminars, that's plural, Search Seminars International.org.
Yeah.
Okay, let me repeat that one more time. Search Seminars International.org.
That's right.
Fully spelled out.
Yeah.
So let's kind of recap where we are to this point, at this 5th program of ours. Just take us back briefly and hit some of the highlights.
The first question, is there a God? And we looked at circumstantial evidence, logical analysis, and statistical analysis, and the evidence was too strong. I could not deny the existence of something, somebody out there called God. Then we went to the question of, can we know? Because this question of truth was there. Some people say you cannot know. We went through the 3 types of truth: traditional truth, modern truth, and postmodernistic truth. We examined them pretty carefully, and we found that the traditional truth was still valid. It was something that we can look at, because modernism and postmodernism really did not offer us anything regarding the questions we had. On the contrary, relativism was really very impractical. When we came then to the religions themselves, there was a question of whether there was just one religion or many, called pluralism. Looking at them carefully again, we found that pluralism really is only an opinion. It does not stand to the scrutiny of the written texts of the major religions. So I had to state that there has to be just one religion that was making a legitimate claim of being the only way.
So in each one of these 5 major religions did claim the exclusiveness of saying, we are, right? We're the only way to go.
We're the only way, and the others are not. Okay. They emphasized that as well.
Okay.
And none of them could I see saying, I am a good way and the other is an equal alternative. None whatsoever.
So then you were faced with either everyone is wrong, or everyone is right,
or there's only one that was telling the truth.
Or only one that's telling the truth.
And we looked through those 3 and found that the most reasonable one was the last. Only one of them was telling the truth. And so we went on the search as to which one it is, and that's what we were doing. We were asking 10 questions of these 5 religions: Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, Judaism, and Christianity. So far we've done 1 question. The first one was, what kind of literature is it? The New Testament is the best attested ancient literature in the world. Top feature, the New Testament, the whole Bible has been written in a manner that is really amazing. Number 3 is, does it open itself to being tested? 2 of them, the Hindu and the Buddhist, said no. The Islamic said you can test, but it turned out to be a vague test. Really not a thorough test. predictive prophecy was a test thrown out by the Judeo-Christian literature of the Bible, and it met its own test impressively. The last one was the claims of the individual founders. Jesus made the highest claim of being the Son of God.
Amen. Thank you so much, Dr. Pundit, for joining us again. And, I am so excited that you're going to be coming back for a couple more programs.
It's a pleasure for me to be here, just to share this gives me a thrill that's deep inside, and I would love to do it over and over again, and I'll be back.
Praise the Lord. Now, you know that we want you to join us again next time as we look at more of Dr. Pundit's research and his wonderful conclusion.